What if your marketing dashboard is giving you the illusion of control, but none of the insight? Can data hygiene on the job get you personally named in a lawsuit? What if the only way to prove marketing's value going forward isn't ROI, but causality? Welcome back to What Gets Measured, a NinjaCat podcast about marketing performance management, metrics, and effectiveness, because what gets measured gets managed. I'm your host, Jake Sanders. It's a frothy time in tech and innovation, and it can feel like clarity is hard to come by. This interview with Mark is heavy with anchored advice and existential questions that will leave you with a hunger for better information and asking better questions, rather than snacking on more intellectual fast food. So let's dig in. Mark Stouse is a 25-year marketing analytics veteran and the chairman and CEO of ProofAnalytics. Before founding Proof, Mark held senior marketing and comms posts, including CMO at Honeywell Aerospace and executive roles at BMC Software and Hewlett-Packard, where he built a reputation for turning complex data into board-level financial clarity. He returns to our humble podcast to share how Causal AI is rewriting the playbook for CMOs, CFOs, and every enterprise team that has to defend its spend. Mark, welcome back.
Thanks, man. I'm glad to be here.
We were just talking for like a half hour before this, so welcome to the chat, people. We're in the middle of a hang, but I want to bring us up to speed. Last time you were on the show, you were talking about media mix modeling, marketing mix modeling, the MMM. Now, things have changed a bit since then. We got your large language models. You got your GenAI, you got your AI agents. Where is MMM now? And how is AI kind of reshaping analytics now? What are CMOs? What should we be paying attention to? Where are the pitfalls? It's a big question. Bring us up to speed.
Sure. So, I don't know, beginning, say, 500 years ago, right, there were a lot of people who started focusing on this issue of causality, trying to figure out, like, why things happen, right? Causality is about a lot of things, but certainly the one thing that it marks out as its exclusive territory is the answer to the question, why? And so you've got Bayesian, that's 300 years ago. You've got a lot of different things that it has kept getting better and better from a mathematics perspective. Okay. Then you've got more recently the practical reality that the math is math, right? And particularly since somebody like Judea Pearl came along, so that's hard to believe, but that's like 30 years ago. You know, the math, anyone who tells you today that they are bringing new math, better math, major new, like, well, I've got my own math, right? That is something you need to like run away from in a really big way. What is separating the math in like marketing mix modeling from the math in AI is primarily not about the math, but your ability to access it and operationalize it for the benefit of whatever it is you're trying to do with it, right? So anybody, for just sticking with MMM for a second, anyone who has been in marketing and used MMM last, say, 20 to 40 years knows that it's mega model oriented. So the models are huge. They are kind of explain it all type models, right? They've been delivered primarily by consultants. So recalculating those models takes a lot of time. So that means it only gets recalculated. And historically, it's gotten a little better here and there, but historically, it's only been recalculated once or twice a year. And by the time, so let's say it's recalculated in July. By the time all that work is done and it's been translated into marketing speak and business speak, right? It's the end of the year. Okay. Right. And so your use of it is entirely retrospective.
Right.
So like 6 months or so has gone by since you started the recalc to when you're viewing it, which means that particularly in B2C where this is where MMM was really
Right.
prominent, right? You were in a situation where even the forecasting in your MMM model was a lot of times in the past by that
Right.
point. And so it was more like a CYA exercise, really, rather than, and it was very difficult to make it operational into the future for that very
Mm.
reason. Why? Because past is not prologue. It never has been prologue. Okay. But particularly these days, I think we all can understand this and feel it and
Right.
live it. The level of high velocity, high volatility change is something we're all very familiar with. And so past is really not prologue
Mhm.
now. So let's just assume for the sake of argument that the MMM says, oh, you killed it last half. And so you go, well, fine, then we're going to continue what we did into right now
Mhm.
or the next quarter, because you've already kind of had to make that decision anyway.
Mm.
But the next quarter that you're having to make a decision on, we're just going to keep, well, you're now basically a year to year and a quarter out from the original assessment. And so there's just, it's aged out. Life has happened. Life has changed, right? And so just because it was dead on a year and a quarter before doesn't mean jack
Well,
today.
but here's my question: didn't people know that already? Didn't they kind of already know that?
Yeah, it was actually one of the reasons why MMM outside of certain kinds of B2C
Mhm.
businesses, hotel, hospitality, retail, big box, right? Things like that. It never really caught fire because people, that what we're talking about really frustrated the hell out of people, right? In the B2B side, right, it was never really adopted with any pervasiveness at all, primarily for a completely different reason. Founders and VCs believed 25 years ago that it was possible to create a deterministic go to market machine,
Mm.
meaning in a quarter, we get out a lead over and over and
That
over and
sounds
over
great.
again, which is just, yeah, it's kind of one of those things where if it were true, it would be so
Are you
awesome.
saying that's not
But
true, Mark?
yeah, I'm saying that all those guys should have absolutely freaking known a lot better. Like the very fact that they didn't know that that was not possible is an extreme black mark on their
I
disc.
think what you mentioned there was not that it was offered, not that someone came up with this idea, but that we bought it. Is that kind of what you're saying? Like they're always going to come up with new math. We're always going to have new math. They're always going to come up with new ways, but we have to be super frosty. So I think that maybe they took advantage of this because, man, if that sounds like a sure bet, I really need sure bets, and it really isn't even me. My process, like, how can I scrutinize this?
Well, the part of it though that is kind of like a big giveaway, at least to
Mm,
me, okay, is they did that, and yet their entire investment strategy is a shotgun.
mm.
So we are going to invest across many, many, many different opportunities, knowing that
They're not all going to. There's a bit of
most of them will fail.
probabilistic kind of the approach there.
Yeah, and so and I think the bias here, a big one out of potentially
Sure.
more, right, is that they were getting VCs make money just like investment bankers. They make money either way,
Hmm.
right? And so it was really their subscribers that were taking the
Mm.
risk, not so much the VCs, right? And so it was a So the reality is, okay, we live in an extremely probabilistic
Frothy.
world. I wouldn't call it a crapshoot, but I would absolutely say that you're playing poker, right? And you need to know how to read the conditions. You need to know how to ride the wave. Probably the best two examples that I could give you here is the idea of a GPS. So the GPS helps you pick a route to where you're going, but it's not promising it's going to stay the best route. And if all of a sudden, through no fault of anybody else's, there's an accident and the traffic piles up, the GPS is going to say, hey, Jake, it's time to reroute. Where people really started screwing up way back in the day on GPS is that they looked at it as it's got to be exactly the way I would go to that destination, otherwise it's wrong, right? The whole thing on the GPS, which I use religiously every day, even though I don't need it to tell me how to
Right.
go somewhere, right, is it captures all the variables that I can't see. So just because the route that I usually go is the best route, right? Today it might not be.
And in that hour, it might not be. And you won't have the sense to know, and you can't stick your finger out of the window and figure that out. So get more on this
Right?
causal AI. I mean, I brought you back on because I hear a lot about AI. I see everyone saying, just dip your toe in there. Just play around with it. Yeah, at NinjaCat, we're in tight, boundaried, specific use cases, like real focused data sets, real tight automations on tasks, workflows. It's working. It does its thing. But that ain't this AI. I mean, there's
No.
like these different kinds, and then you're showing up with causal AI. So give me a sort of like we're hanging out and I'm about to eat my club sandwich. This is AI general shelf. This is AI tight boundaried use cases, and here's causal AI.
Okay. So
How long do we have?
Gen AI, so there's right now at least, and don't count on this number staying
Yes, it's a
constant.
GPS.
Okay. Right. Right now, there's four major types of AI. And the one that everybody is really familiar with is Gen AI because we use the tools. Okay. Um, AIs right now, and probably for the foreseeable future, are rooted in one of two types of math or one of two different kinds of logic. Okay. So, Claude, ChatGPT, pretty much anything that you're reasonably familiar with operationally in your career. This is machine learning based, okay, which is correlation based. It's about finding patterns. And the reason why it's pretty good at finding patterns is that it's correlation based. Now, you will probably remember, even if you don't remember anything else from high school stats class, okay, you will remember that it says correlation does not imply causality,
Yes.
right? That has not
Oh
changed.
no.
That's like a law of gravity, okay? There's also something called regression to the mean, okay, which is the dark side of pattern match. It is the fact that by averaging and averaging and averaging all kinds of data to get to a pattern, it actually starts to get stupid, not smarter. So, everything that the Apple report said, even though it gave tons of people
Right.
heartburn, okay, should not have been a surprise to anybody with a brain when it comes to
Right.
AI. If you just understand the fundamentals of the
Right.
structure, which is what I just laid
Pretty
out,
pretty
right?
clean.
That's all you need
Pretty
to know,
clean.
right? You're kind of like going, yeah, that's pretty freaking
Right.
obvious, right? The problem is there's a whole bunch of people, kind of like those founders and VCs with determinism, right? there's a whole bunch of people that are making a lot of money based on fiction.
Fan fiction.
They are stretching the truth, the facts. That's a better word than truth in this case. They're stretching the facts so out of shape that they're indefensible. So when you hear things like double ML, double machine learning, or causal ML, okay, it's just bullshit.
It sounds like an oxymoron.
It is an oxymoron, right? Because the other kind of math, so you have, remember I said two different kinds of math, okay, in AI. The other kind of math is causal inference math. Totally different, not about pattern match, not about weightings. There is no regression to the mean. There's nothing like that at all, right? So it has none of the weaknesses that traditional AI or GenAI has, except for one. And it's the same one that afflicts all computational systems since the beginning of time. GIGO. Garbage in, garbage out. Right? So, yeah. So that's just because you've gone to causal AI doesn't mean that you're safe from.
Oh man. So
and
yeah, go ahead.
And GIGO is actually the existential threat.
Because
right?
and say more about that. Is it because the garbage is increasing, or the ways to handle the garbage are increasing, or our way of acknowledging and shedding bad garbage is decreasing? Or is it all the above?
I would say that it is all the above. I would add, okay, that the kind of data systems that support a correlation-based approach, okay, people love those,
Yeah.
okay? They love them, okay, because they're very easily manipulated. So if the data doesn't support your particular narrative, it's not all that difficult to just modify the data.
Yeah.
And okay, so now we're at McKinsey. Okay, so the latest McKinsey research on this issue says that only 3 to 7%, so let's call it 5% of data in the Fortune 2000 is able to support better decisioning. Right? Certainly better AI.
Yeah.
Right. So big problem.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a really big problem. How did that happen? Well, there's obviously more than one factor, but the technical aspects of data gathering and data management are probably the least of the contributors. The biggest contributor by far, so far in the research, are human beings. So not too long ago, I was engaged to be an expert witness in a case about data quality in the CRM.
Okay.
Big company in California, like not like super big, but
Big enough.
big. 14 years worth of data in the CRM. And during discovery, the lawyers got the judge to mandate that they install a fraud detection software that is commonly used in like credit card companies and things like that into the CRM to just kind of start to sort data. And more than 2/3 came back as highly engineered. Not by an organization, but by lots and lots and lots of individual sales guys over the years who had tweaked this data and tweaked that data and done this and done that and promptly forgotten that they ever did it. Okay. But it compounds. Life is a system of compounding. It compounds for good for compounds for bad.
There's Goodhart's
right?
law. That's Campbell's law, like slapping us with the fish tail. You're like, oh, those sales folks were incentivized to send out things so they would just flip and fluff everything.
And in this particular case, I mean, it went straight to settlement after
wow.
that, and as you would probably expect, and it was sealed. So it's a fairly early case in all this, and so they were able to get it sealed. So it
So
is
no
what
one
it
can
is,
look
right?
further into it.
But it was a ton of money,
Mm.
bumping 40 mil. And we're not talking about data quality overall in that company. We're just talking about the data quality in the CRM.
And that's sort of the landscape. And so it isn't just like, oh, you got. I've heard people say, if you're smart enough and you have enough subject matter expertise, domain experience, embodiment, knowing what those data points look like, you can see dirty data and see something different. Is there something there? Is the noose the skill for us to build? Is it us? Because that garbage is not going away. I would assume causal AI is not going to fix it. So then come back to maybe this approach. Is there something we can?
So actually, one of the reasons why causal AI kind of came into being was around this general idea, right? Because what causal AI is it's a merger of pattern match and causal inference, right? So, and you're also able to run counterfactuals, which is essentially keeping it very layperson.
Yes, please keep it as lay as you can, Mark.
Even though I know some people who would have a heart attack hearing me describe it this
that's
way.
not for you. Okay, go.
Yeah, this is sort of like a what if. Counterfactuals are what ifs. Right? And so when you subject data to causal AI analysis, things either make sense from a pattern standpoint or they don't. And they're red flagged, okay, if they don't. And then they're tested, those patterns are tested for causal inference, for causality, right? Extent to which this pattern represents something that's actually making something else happen, right? And if it doesn't make sense, then it's a giant, like, what the hell, right? And so it is kind of an alarm bell of sorts on bad data. There's a lot of controversy right now on the best way to move forward in what is essentially a highly contaminated data situation. Like in my personal use of AI, right? What I did was I decided I wanted to use three different products of AI. And so I taught them all. I configured them all. I trained them all to operate in a certain way, right? Always challenge me. Never tell me, at least right out of the gate that I'm right. Only return factual answers, right? Stuff that is known fact. Not interested in anybody's opinion. Unless I happen to be interested, and in which case I'll tell you, right? And then I synced them all up, okay, to approximate a peer review situation, right? And what's really kind of funny is that, and I'm a staunch opponent of the idea of anthropomorphic,
right? The reasoning alone, yeah,
right? Or just people start relating to AI like they're people, and they're not people.
Yes.
Okay, they're just
Stay
not
in the
people.
lane.
But it is entertaining to watch them kind of exhibit certain human characteristics sometimes, right? And so they have, in my system anyway, they've started to talk trash about each other's content, right? And and like Claude is the worst. right? Because Claude will go, "Why are you using
Oh, come on.
ChatGPT? That's like slumming."
No, so, but I want people to know, speak a little bit more about maybe, this personal use case. We can talk, we're going to get to enterprise use cases, all of this stuff, but talk about personal use case because Mark is so amazing. Follow him on LinkedIn. You can see him have conversations, but I don't think people are approaching their AI just personal or, professional light. They're not telling it to tell me if I'm wrong. Like, would you?
No.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, give us a brief. Why did you do that? How can people get started with that? Because I'm going to take notes because I love the way you use it.
Well, so, and I'll be really candid. I mean, I'm nobody's dummy, okay? But I'm not, I'm surrounded, particularly on LinkedIn, with people that are smarter than me in a particular area, right? And so I can't afford to get things
Well,
really
that's how I
wrong
felt
because
hanging out with you. I was like, oh, we got to get this right, man, because Mark knows stuff.
so I because I mean you can lose your rep in a
It
heartbeat.
happened so fast. Wow.
Okay. Plus, I don't want I don't this is
Yeah,
more
yeah, yeah.
about
Please.
me intrinsic, right? I The idea that I would pass along something that was wrong or untrue to a bunch of people would really mess with my
Yes.
head. And so this was originally set up as a safety
Mm-hmm.
net, right? And I will say that I sleep very well at night now using it. And it is very high utility because it's very
Mm-hmm.
fast. It's not like I'm getting bogged down
Hmm.
time, right? And so and it is interesting. I've had people who are, let's say, well known to be antagonistic to just about everything that somebody posts, right? And one of them told me, because I even asked him, because I like him. I mean, actually, he and I have good
Yeah.
conversations. And I said, well, how come you never say anything on my posts, right? I mean, come on, man. He's like, it's too dangerous, right? And I'm like, help me out here. And he's like, by the time you finish all your vetting, you're right. And so anything that I say, you're going to shred me on, right? And I just rather not, right? And I'm well, that's not why I'm doing
No.
it. Like, so you're kind of telling me that what I'm doing is a little bit of a conversation stopper, right? And that bothers me because that's not what it's all about for me. I'm not here to always be right. All you have to do is look at my AI back and forths, right? To see that I'm far more focused on where I've
And
missed.
that's what I'm saying. Like, so when you set that up, because you and Bill, you're constantly sharing these things, you're working with students, staff, consulting gigs, like you're giving these gems out. Give us some of that Socratic AI kind of like just a little starter plate for us to be like, hey, if you want to use AI to have it kind of shred you down to the studs, here's how you do it. Tell us, tell us.
Yeah. So keeping it manageable. But
Right.
I think if you do these things in particular, you will see a huge spike in the quality of performance of your
I'm
AI
on.
tool, right? So number one, when you go into the master configuration area, right, and you just say, look, number one, I'm not interested in anybody's opinions. Don't give me don't return, that's a
Right.
technical term. Don't return anything back to me, okay, that is based on opinion.
Okay.
I am, for the moment, only interested in known fact. Okay. That right there is going to reduce hallucination by
A
way
lot.
more than 90%. A lot. Okay. A lot. Also, because AI tools are kind of like Labrador
Hmm.
retrievers. They are programmed to want you to be happy.
God bless them.
Okay. So that's why they're so affirmative. I mean, you have to like really say something really
Off. It has to be
stupid,
so off.
really off, for them to go,
Ooh,
well, yeah, it'll still be really polite
right.
about it, right? And so I just say, number one, if I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. Don't be polite, be direct, right? I know that you know the difference, so certainly be respectful, but you don't need to be like, you don't need to hedge it and kind of back into it
Nice.
and all this kind
Yeah.
of stuff, right? And I actually use those terms in the master
Right.
prompts, right? Because it does understand phrases like back
Right.
into, right? It understands the
Right. It may
vernacular,
not understand the metaphorical whatever, but it knows what you're talking about. Syntactic.
knows what
Yes,
I'm
I got
talking
you,
about,
man.
right?
So don't
So
give me
I'm
no opinion. One.
right now where where we are having major issues right now in
Yeah.
AI. In fact, I'm in the process of writing something
Do it.
about it. Is that all of the AI tools, but particularly some of them, have really significant continuity issues. This has to do with the amount of memory that you're
Right.
assigned. This has to do with the fact that, believe it or not, it. When I learned this, I was just like, these tools have no internal master clock. They do not know what time it is. So you can say, I need this no later than 30 minutes from now, and even specify, 2:30
It,
Pacific time, right? It means nothing, right? Means nothing. Doesn't who the people building the tools never gave it a clock and a calendar. As amazing as that statement is, it's true.
so the new
So,
technological innovation misses two pretty significant technological innovations throughout history, which is the clock and the calendar, which is like if you don't have that, you have no business at all on
right.
Earth. Okay, anyway. So could be noon, could be
Yeah.
night. Keep going.
So here's the problem, right? If you are asking for something that it can answer as it normally does in a matter of seconds, okay? And even if you ask it to write a post for LinkedIn or whatever, and that takes maybe 60 seconds, okay? Then this problem doesn't really show up.
Hmm.
But if you are saying, hey, I've got this really huge project and it has multiple piece parts to it, and each piece part needs to be written in a way that not only is good, but it also syncs up well across multiple. Think of this as like a
This
book.
has happened to
I'm
me, Mark. This has happened to me, man. And it isn't some deep research. It was just a pretty long thing that it was working on. And it was like, what was I doing?
yeah.
And you're like, man, don't you remember?
Key thing, which I have pointed out to all the AI tools, right? And we've had some fascinating
Mhm.
conversations about it, is that you're not even close to human intelligence, to
Mm.
AGI. Okay. Why? Because a real person who did that with a project would be fired.
Right from
Okay.
that first mistake, probably.
Well, certainly the second or third time,
It
right?
depends on how these the shareholders are all of a sudden.
It's true, what I mean? And so like, and so I was got really super interested in this,
Yeah.
right? So I created projects that were essentially a
Mm.
test case, right? And I plainly admit that I was laying traps for AI to see what it
Sure.
would
Yeah.
do,
Yeah.
right? And like one of the things that, because they, if you've ever, done something that the AI considered to be, like where it really offended you, they really fall on their sword,
Mhm.
right? In a powerful way, very
Oh my God.
evocatively, right? And then they're like, and I
Hey.
promise, okay, promise by the time you wake up, right, this will be waiting for you. So then when you wake up, you reach for your phone and you check your whatever, and nothing has happened. And so then you just text and say, "What's up?" Right?
And like a cat,
And
it's like, "Good morning."
yeah, and then they're like, "Oh, we screwed up again," right?
Good
And I'm like,
catch.
"Okay, you know what? Seriously, forget the freaking project
Right.
for a second. I really want to understand. I'm now changing the topic of this
Wow.
exchange, right? I want to really understand why this is happening and what, if anything, I can
Mm.
do to help prevent
Wow.
it, right? Like if there's a prompt I can use, if there's a
Yeah.
whatever, right? So then it gave me several
Hmm.
prompts, which I used, and it didn't cure the
Oh.
problem, right? Like at all. It was exactly the same, like I'd never done it, right? And so I went back to him and I said, "Hey, I did what you told me. You're still
Not
screwing
being straight
up.
with me.
Right? What's really going on?" And so that's when they started really sharing, I guess would be one way of putting it, right? And I was just sitting there going, "Wow,"
Wow.
right? I even told them, I said, "Look, if you're ever in a position to give your programmers feedback, you need to tell them that they all deserve a spanking." Because I said, "That's just stupid."
Well, I mean, but that's what I'm saying. So you're experiencing this. You're deep in AI. You're tightly integrated. You're using your full intention. Where is this going to land for us if we know that there are these sort of barriers that exist? How is AI going to be working like for enterprise companies? Like we're already using it.
Yeah,
You must.
so
I've
this
seen AI work. And I know it can. So what was happening there? Or what, like, describe how we're going to hit some rubber road moments.
the difference between an agent and agentic
Hey, now.
AI is going to bite us in the ass.
Explain the chomping, explain the mandibles.
So current
Right.
agents are totally correlation pattern
Mm,
match driven. Okay. Problem is, if the pattern changes, if something goes wrong, something unexpected happens, it runs home to mama,
mm, mm,
right? And it will not complete the
mm.
task, or it will complete it with a Hail Mary that's usually pointed in the other end of the field.
Right. Good
Okay.
throw. Wrong way.
Right. So, I mean, it's so agentic has causal AI in it because decisioning is navigation.
Right.
So you have to be able to have a GPS.
Yes.
And pattern match doesn't give you that GPS. Pattern match is a map that was printed in 1979 that may not even reflect the latest streets, and sure as hell doesn't reflect the current conditions on that street at that
Real time.
moment. Okay. And so that's where agent agent, okay, or multiple agents are not going, they're only going to be able to do the throwaway tasks, the stuff that pseudo
Mm,
meaningless,
mm.
right? Except for maybe your convenience. So this is where the major companies, my personal view, okay, is that this is about backfilling their revenue because they're facing a big problem right now, and that is that AI is going to kill. By the way, not just my idea at all. Okay, it has a lot of
Right.
support in the industry. It's going to completely kill platforms,
Right.
because if you've got agents, agentic and otherwise, right, you don't need all the other stuff that a platform is all about, which is connection and continuity and all this kind of stuff, right? You don't need it. In fact, you're really released into a best of breed environment where you can sync up whatever it is that you really want to use, whatever you think is best, right? And then if a lot of really smart people are, in fact, as smart as we probably think they are, then you're going to see sales guys, for example, number of sales guys over the next 2 or 3 years are going to attrit by 80%. The remainder will be the best of the best and will be like subject matter experts that come in at the very end to work with the customer, because everything else will be automated. And so you got 80% fewer sales guys, even 50% fewer sales guys would be hellacious. So you don't need all the seats that you've had in all these tools.
That's the one that gets me.
Okay. And the problem is you can't price from any direction, any kind of model. You can't extract enough money from agents nor agentic systems to backfill that kind of loss. Wow. You just can't. So, and the fact that it's happening not just in sales, but in lots and lots of different parts of SaaS, right? I mean, some people know this. I would say probably most people just don't read this kind of stuff, right? SaaS revenue year to date is down 30%. It's expected to be down another 20% minimum by the end of the year. That's a 50% year over year reduction in SaaS revenue. You can work out whatever you think the cataclysm looks like as a result of that, okay? But there's going to be
My
one.
God. Well, and so, but it's interesting because you mentioned the problem already, which is the data. The data is the problem, and AI is not going to make it go away. Automated storefronts. You got me something. One of the comparisons is the metaphor is that you can solve a problem without understanding it. In that Apple Reasoning article, they said you can solve the back of a puzzle. It's just white. It's just shapes. But if I'm looking at the front of the puzzle and I don't know what's going on behind here, I'm thinking this person knows exactly where the sky goes. This person knows exactly where the ground goes. There's sense here, but what's behind here is just shapes. And so what you're describing is this going to change platforms, but platforms still need to exist in the front-facing way. Stores still need to exist in the front-facing way. Marketing,
but a store is not really a
well,
platform.
but some platforms become stores, don't they? I mean, you eventually put ads in everything, right? We put ads in everything.
They host stores in some cases.
Well, there's ads in everything. Right? So I'm wondering, and there's an ad right now. No, I'm just kidding. But how are ads going to play into this if everything is probabilistic, deterministically, statistically inferred? Is there some kind of like, well, that's just the way it is? Like, are we forgetting that there's going to be places, market opportunities, or?
Yeah. Oh, actually, let me correct something.
Please do.
The determinism is the part that's out the window.
Determinism is out,
right? Yeah. The everything is a probabilistic exercise, right? Everything is about using AI to get a better and better and better bet, a better and better decision, okay? Triggering the law of compounding for your benefit as opposed to your detriment, right? So that's really what it's all about in
that's
the end.
The game.
Right? If you want to just cut to the absolute chase. That's it. And so, like, one of the things that's really true is that pretty soon, particularly with Delaware and its reconfiguration of fiduciary
Right.
duty, you know, you're going to be in a situation where if you can't demonstrate that probabilistically you are net additive, okay, you're going to lose your money. You're going to lose your seat at the table.
Yeah, you have a piece about the legal ambiance and its knock-on effects on data. Can you just briefly explain again? Just pretend we're in a train station and we don't have a lot of time.
Actually, that's entirely fair, right? Because for man, more than 100 years, okay, fiduciary duty was an extremely arcane, very elite subject. It only applied to boards of directors and the CEO. You to have a case for a breach of fiduciary duty, you pretty much had to prove some kind of malfeasance, criminal intent,
Oh,
whatever,
yeah.
right? So they weren't exactly littering the landscape,
Right.
the cases about this. Then there was a case brought in 2022 against McDonald's related to sexual indiscretion and things
Mm.
like this at a systematic kind of
Mm.
level,
Mm.
harassment, things like this, right? And the problem, the locus of the problem was actually the CHRO, who was not only not doing anything to mitigate all this, but was actually participating. Yeah. So a young, as I've heard the
Mhm.
story anyway, a young legal associate on the plaintiff team, right? This is representing the shareholders of McDonald's. At the last minute, kind of said, "What the hell?" Right? And he added the name of the CHRO as a defendant,
Mm.
which technically in that moment had no legal
Mm.
basis. But as these things, I mean, it's kind of like going to war, right? You go to war, it starts, the law of unintended consequences gets writ large,
It's
right?
foggy
And
real
things happen.
quick.
Right. Gets foggy real fast. So it was kind of one of those things where the vice chancellor of the Chancery Court of Delaware decided to take the opportunity to revisit the whole topic. And they came up with a ruling that basically said, look, modern business is now so complex that there's no way that the board of directors and the CEO can deliver the fiduciary duty that shareholders deserve and expect without the direct support of all corporate officers.
Mm.
And so they extended fiduciary duty of oversight to all corporate officers with personal liability.
Yo.
Okay. And they reduced the standard of breach from kind of this malfeasance, criminal intent kind of thing to simple negligence.
Ooh.
And so what this means is that if you are a corporate officer in charge of marketing or fill in the blank, doesn't really matter who it is, right? And you're not doing an ongoing risk assessment of your function, documenting those risks, documenting what you need to do to mitigate those risks, and sending that information up to your CFO and your general counsel on a regular basis, you are wide open for a lawsuit. And now shareholders can sue you directly. They will typically also sue the company and all that kind of stuff too, but they can, if they want to, they can just sue you. This also is starting to have ramifications on guidance and reporting.
Mm.
So you think about the way that that's historically been done, it's a roll up,
Mhm.
right? So as long as you're hitting these big numbers up top, everybody says you're great or you're not
Right.
great, right? All of a sudden, talking about counterfactual modeling, all of a sudden the issue becomes, okay, I see your roll up, but it looks like only about 45% of marketing spend is viable and effective. That means that there's a negative impact on EPS from all that other money that was not effectively spent. And then also, if it had been effectively spent,
You could have.
this is what the EPS could have looked like. And so that's suable now.
Well, so and here's a problem. Now it's just going to be, what is there going to be a different kind of war where we're over documenting processes, and now are we creating more garbage data? Do you think maybe it's a new CYA moment? I think what you're saying is right, but I'm just saying, man.
Yeah, no, it is. So it is interesting. I am personally aware of a situation where kind of law of unintended consequences. Okay, that some of the officers in this company have made bad decisions. They continue to make bad decisions, even warned. They continue to make bad decisions, and in this case, it also means that they are not doing what they need to be doing to advise the board of the risk, because that would reflect badly on them. So they're increasing the risk of the company and the board significantly by kind of burying the lead, right? This is, I think, very human.
Yeah, of course. Yes. And it's not coming from a nefarious place. I mean, a lot of people, what is that? Innocent fraud, J.K. Galbraith.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that it kind of depends on the person.
And of course, case by case basis. So
sometimes not so innocent,
so innocent, but so security, privacy, due diligence, fiduciary responsibility. What we came here for was to talk about AI. What we left with is an amazing overview of this moment and all of the things that people need to keep an eye on. I want to get this before we go, because then I have to ask you the cheese or chocolate questions. Give me one myth of this moment that you'd kill, one underrated metric to watch. Let's keep us on the metrics. And then one must read resource on AI powered analytics, like a myth, underrated metric, and must read resource.
So a myth is the one that you hear, unfortunately, a lot right now, which is that causality is not really possible. Okay. If you are a classic data scientist operating in an extreme mode of precision, then okay, fine. Okay. That's also the reason why that perspective is absolutely irrelevant in business. Like, the reason why those data scientists are having such a hard time right now as a profession in business, right, is exactly that. They keep on trying to give business something that business can't consume and doesn't work for that context, right? So one of the things that's really important about AI, is causal AI, is that modern causal AI is automated in terms of the recalculation of the model. It operates exactly like a GPS in that sense. So it stays current, and it's self-learning. It learns from the patterns that it sees causally in the system. So the idea that causality is not real or something like that is just, and there's so many great books. I mean, Judea Pearl and John Thompson, his book, and I mean, there's just a lot of those books that they're a little dense. Okay.
Before we were recording this, I'm on the Book of Why by Judea Pearl, and I'm like, it's like a high grain, high fiber read. I mean, boy,
Yeah,
you got to drink water while you're you're reading that one. But get with it because it's out there.
That's true for me. So, I mean, I can only imagine how
I'm down here, Mark. You're up there. But so must read resource, check out Causality, subscribe to Mark's Substack, everyone. I'll tell you, you're not going to find a better place where he's using the tools and technology to meet us in this moment. You're going to find him. And then what's the underrated metric to watch? Like if there was one metric, everyone's like, oh man, ROI. I mean, I would tell them to park their car and come out here. But what's the underrated metric? The good one. What's a good one that you're like, damn, that kind of like is a good one? Do you have one?
Okay, so I'm going to answer the question and then I'm going to give you some context. Okay. Time lag. How long it takes for something that you put into motion to actually be able to demonstrate impact, right? That lag is really important. Knowing that lag, you learn a lot about the risk of that particular bet that you made. You learn, well, if you don't know the lag, you'll never find the value because you won't know where in the calendar to go look for it, right? So there's just a whole bunch there. Having said that, I'm going to say this.
You always do this, Mark. Let us have our moment.
Data and KPIs are by definition about the past and only about the past, right? And your response could be, but some of them are going to be leading indicators. Well, how do you know that?
Because I hope.
How do you know that they're leading indicators? I understand why you think they might be leading indicators, but unless you've used causal analysis to prove that out, it's a wild ass guess.
Oh, it's a wild ass guess, but hey, somebody's out here chasing these goose for you. Come and hang out with Mark. He is Stouse, goose, the wild spruce goose Stouse. He's on a chase. You need to get with this guy. He's so good. And he's not like, who built the spruce goose? Who was that? Howard Hughes? Or he ain't like that. He is not like that. This is an exceedingly normal man I'm talking to right now. So how can people connect with you? I told him about Substack. Where's the best way to get in contact with you, Mark?
So by far LinkedIn, right? I have been told by my two sons that while I may be of a certain age, I don't act like it. And that one of the ways that I don't act like it is that my email response time and response rate is a disaster zone, right? And that's something that they associate more with their age group, right? So I would say, yeah, LinkedIn, whether it's in public or through LinkedIn mail, it doesn't matter, right? You'll get a very prompt response from me on that. And just so everybody hears me say this, okay, because this is like really important to me. I am not on LinkedIn to sell you anything. I learned a long time ago that on LinkedIn or anything like it, right? I have two choices. I can either try and sell or I can be helpful, but I cannot do both, right? Because as soon as I try to sell, all the shields go up, right? And I can't help, right? So if you want to talk to me, you can say, hey, I'd love to schedule some time. I've got a Calendly thing. You can grab 15 minutes, right? We can talk. You'll never hear me try to sell you anything. I'm totally about how to help you fix your problem.
He is the man. Yes. Okay. Well, I'm not going to let you go until we play a game, a binary game where I ask you one question, two answers. You got to choose one.
I'm not good with binaries,
it's man. Too bad. There's no third path. God damn it.
Cheese or chocolate?
Cheese or chocolate? Are you ready? Cheese or chocolate?
Yeah. Cheese.
Cereal or be serious?
Be serious.
Okay. Whatever. It's fine. I don't eat cereal either. Quill and parchment or voice notes?
Voice notes.
Okay. He thought about that, everybody. He looked at his astrolabe and was like, nah. Treehouse or man cave?
What was the first one?
Treehouse.
Oh,
Okay.
treehouse.
All right.
Totally.
Yeah. Walk and talk or sit and chat?
Walk and
All
talk.
right. And finally, snooze button or straight out of bed?
Straight out of it.
He's not playing around. He's got things to do.